The opening pages of a screenplay, important or cliche?
Well, cliches work for a reason, but if you do it well, then it works. So what do you mean, and what's the context of the opening?
How important are they? Are people really tossing something in a slush pile, based on?
Yeah, they do, but it's like if you can grab, like it has to play professional, it has to read professional, and it also has to have something happening in the beginning, and it can't be just exposition, people sitting around talking. Yeah, it is, and I've even seen. Here's another thing people don't know is that producers will look at what the genre is and see the page count at the end. And it's like, if you've written a script that's like 150 pages, they're like, this person doesn't know what they're doing. Because no one should write a script over 115 pages unless you're Quentin Tarantino or like Paul Thomas Anderson. And if it's like a horror movie and it's 140 pages, they're gonna be like, what the is going on? Because you know how many pages they're all. I mean, if you look at most professional scripts, they're always studio scripts or anything, they're 105 to like 112 pages, like clockwork. Horror movies a little bit less, they're like 98 to like 104. But, so they see so many scripts and they know they can, and you got to keep in mind, you're competing for their time against professional scripts they're getting. So it's got to be, really awesome. And it's got to be bombastic in the beginning, not you're blowing stuff up, but you have to grab them somehow. Do something somehow, that really shows like, oh, wow, I haven't seen that before. Oh, wow, that's interesting. Have somebody, have adrenaline needles jammed in their heart on the first, first line, wakes up, where am I? You do something, and that doesn't necessarily have to be how the story's structured, but you have to figure out a way to like make it work and have the beginning be something that's really, really interesting.
How much time do you spend on the first page of a screenplay?
Not much, maybe like 10 minutes. Maybe 5. It just depends on the flow. But a lot of times when I first start something, I'll just be like this, and I kind of know because I've thought about the beats of what I want to happen, and then I'll go back and rework it. So it's like I'm more concerned not necessarily with all the dialogue, line for line, but more what the scene is saying. Like what's the beginning, middle, and end of the scene, and what's it trying to get across, and then go back and finesse all that stuff. And two, now I do a new system now where I don't write any description while I'm writing. I'll just say, describe office, and then go back and do that at the end because it doesn't have anything to do really with the story.
It slows you down?
Yeah, yeah.
Wood paneling, file
Yeah,
cabinet,
exactly.
like
Go back and do all that at one time at the end.
Interesting. So you put in like a little space holder.
Yeah, explain city, explain the car, describe here. Now, if it's really important to the story, maybe I'll put it in. But if it's just, like if it's a spy movie, it's like, and you got to describe Paris, as the sunrise comes up, I'll do that later. Just put establish Paris. They just keep going because that's not, that's easy to do.
How do you write a screenplay in 2 weeks?
I think a bigger question, how do you write a screenplay in 2 days? Because I've done that. It's actually like the time writing differs, but it's like how much have you thought about it? Because there's times I think I said earlier, I'll think about something for 2-3 weeks before I even touch the keyboard about the story and run a lot of it in my head. And if I get a big chunk of it, it's like I could just write 20, 30 pages in a day. But I've thought about it. It's not just I'm like looking at the blank page. I'm not one of those people who stares at the computer. I'll go for walks. I'll get coffee, do whatever, ride a bike. That's when I get all my ideas. And for some reason, driving. But it's like you almost get in this zone of like thinking about things. And sometimes when I'm stuck, I'll go for a walk. I can come back and write like 5 or 6 scenes because I just saw it all in my head. So yeah, that's the process. I mean, there's one screenplay I wrote in two days because I forgot when I was supposed to deliver it. And this was when I was first writing. And then it became, it was supposed to be a $500,000 little action movie that became a $10 million film, and I wrote it in 2 days. So, but there were a lot of parameters set on that job. It had to be one location, don't want to change wardrobe, the actor can't talk too much because he's an MMA fighter. Like there were all these things. And I just was like, you know what? I kept putting it off because I really didn't want to do it. I got paid and I wrote in a weekend. And then it became a $10 million film. They didn't really use the script. It kept changing and changing, but you never know. Strange things happen in this business.
What's an example of lingering too long on a film project?
That's a good question. You mean if you write a script and you keep trying to get it made and getting it made and it's not working? Yeah, I don't know. It depends on who you're talking to. If you don't have any contacts and you're slowly building up, who you know and getting people to read it, it could take a process of years. But if you had a project that you gave to your agent, your manager, and you had some producers read and everybody was kind of like not really jiving with it, I would say, put it away and write something else. So it kind of depends on where you're at. It's like if you've got a great script, but you don't have access to get the proper people to read it for a couple of years, it's going to take a couple of years. So your instinct should tell you everything, though, if people are really responding, the right people, if you can get some right people to really read it. If you do one of those, coverage things or something, and they give you 50 pages of coverage, maybe you're in trouble, but so that's, I don't really know the answer to that, but I think you just have to use your instinct on what's working and what's not.
Sometimes you write a script and you know it's not good enough. How do you know?
Again, just instinct. It's like, I've worked on things where it's like, it feels great, but it doesn't feel amazing. Like it feels like it's almost there. Or maybe the first 60 pages seem really amazing, but the third act doesn't work. So you just have to know. I wrote a heist script recently. I was working on, I got inspired and quickly wrote this heist script. I think the first 60 pages are great, but the third act is horrible, which usually not something that happens. It's not horrible, but it doesn't keep up with the rest of the film. And I'm not getting any inspiration to come up with the third act. So I just put it away for now. Maybe I'll revisit it in 6 months or 3 months or 2 years from now. But you just kind of have to know when things are working and when they're not. Are you banging your head against the wall? That's not good. If there's something that you feel is like you can't crack the nut all the way through or figure it out, you should maybe think about something or put it down for a while. Sometimes you can put something down and come back to it. There's a lot of people I know, a lot of directors I know who worked on things for years. They put things away and they come back to them. And they'll be like, hey, wow, this is pretty cool, but they have a fresh perspective on it all.
Was there a project that taught you how important your instinct was? Maybe you didn't pay attention to it before when it came to writing?
Yeah,
I think it happened?
I think the movie Rage that we did, the screenplay, it was called Tokarev originally. I love this movie, this British film called The Long Good Friday, which has Bob Hoskins in it. It's from the early 80s. And I was like, I want to do something like that. And I kept thinking, and then I mentioned to a few people and they didn't know the movie or they just were like, yeah, whatever. And I was like, no, this could make a really cool thing. Tonally, it was that kind of movie. The story's completely different, but it kind of had the same tone. And that was when we were writing a lot of horror things, just doing horror. Sean and I were just doing horror. That's all I was working on. And I was like, no, this thriller is a cool thriller. And it's got a lot of things that are going for it. And I wrote like half the script in like one day. I just kept thinking about it. Then I sent over Sean. He did some work on it. And we finished it. And it got amazing response. And it was one of those times where I was like, I think I need to move from horror into thriller stuff. And this is like a really cool idea. And it worked, And everybody loved the script and it got made and did really well for us.
So because of that, you realized, okay, I can trust myself.
Yeah. Same thing happened with writing a pilot too, that we sold to ABC. It's like we never worked in TV. And then one day I was like, we should write a pilot. And we decided to write a pilot and had to find copies of pilots to even know the structure. And I think we called our manager. I was like, hey, can you send us some pilots? And wrote a pilot without ever knowing anything about pilots. And there was a bidding war between ABC and NBC and we sold it. Didn't get made, but it was like another one of those times where it's like, I don't know, never worked in TV, but it feels like maybe we should do some TV. So yeah, just follow a lot of instinct stuff. Works. Don't know why.